Anyway, we want to thank you very much for giving us some of your time, and this is for the Santa Clara Valley Historical Association.
You can give it back to me just before I die.
Okay.
I might want that in like 15, 20 minutes, you know.
Okay, that's a deal. And we wanted to ask your permission that we can use this in our upcoming video and maybe put it out in cyberspace one of these days.
Well, I don't care what you do with it, really. I mean, as long as you don't do something incredibly embarrassing with it. I mean,
absolutely.
I just, you know, I wouldn't do it if it mattered to me about, you know.
We quit doing those porno movies last week. You know?
I still have a few extras though in the car. You know? And then some of the time I would sleep inside in the apartment on the folding bed. You know, so one morning I'm there sleeping. This guy comes in and he says, "Jesus Christ, man!" He says, "Wow, I bet you have to shave 3 times a day." He says, this black guy named David, and it cracked me up. I bet you have to shave 3 times a day. He goes, "Wow, you must have to shave 3 times a day." And so I got to hanging out with this guy, David McQueen, a real great guy. And he and I would go out looking for odd jobs, you know. And I mean, we were like, we were like the Laurel and Hardy of East Palo Alto. We'd find these little, you know, like $20 a day jobs, you know, moving furniture. Here, you take the heavy end. No, God damn it, you take it. No. Oh, look out for that. You know, be like, totally silly. But he was the first guy that sort of like befriended me a lot, you know. And then sometime or another, somebody brought a guitar, a little acoustic guitar, over to this guy's house, and I played a little, and David McCool, when he heard me play the blues, it killed him. He says, "Hey man, I never heard a white man with a soul like you, with soul like what you got, man." And I was tremendously flattered, you know. And he says, like, "Come on, I gotta take you around." He'd take me around to all of his friends' places, and I'd play the blues, and people would go, "God damn, listen to that white boy play the blues," you know. It was great.
guitar style has evolved over the. I mean, you have so much confidence in. I mean, you don't feel like you have to, you know, go berserk in order to make people hear what you're getting across.
Well, I'm hoping to not have to go berserk at all. I mean, I will if the situation really calls for it. But really, my model for playing is is based on a psychedelic experience also. My model for, like, when I go on stage, what am I trying to accomplish? Okay, here's the story. There's one time we played, we were playing at the old Fillmore, and it was after Bill Graham wasn't running it anymore. So there was some independent, like a hippies, some hippies, local hippies, rented it for some cause or another or whatever. Anyway, we were playing there. It was but Bill wasn't running it. So it was a little bit strange, and there, like, some weird bands were playing on the same bill with us, like maybe, like at that time, say like the Flaming Groovies or somebody like, you know what I mean? Some of the bands that were happening back at that time. This is like the late '60s, or the late '60s. So this guy who was like sort of a famous freak that ran around the scene in those days, comes in and he's got this big birthday cake. He's got this huge big birthday cake. You know, I'm looking at it thinking, that thing has got to be dosed. I just know this sucker. I know it's dosed. You know, I'm looking at it and looking at it and thinking, yeah, that's sure it's done. And then I said, but it looked good. You know, it was beautiful. This beautiful big, you know. So I thought, well, I'll just take a little of the frosting here. You know, just you know. I'll just take a little snack. So I took this, and then somebody comes in and says, yeah, we put about 800 hits of acid in that frosting, you know, and I go, oh God, you know, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm going to be totally fucking wiped out with this, you know. And by this time, I didn't really enjoy playing, you know, under the influence of psychedelics, because I didn't have the freedom to quit if I wanted to. It wasn't really that much fun to play when you don't have the option. You know, when you don't have options. So I mean, it wasn't something I was looking forward to. And so I'm sitting there and I'm waiting to play, and we're going later. It gets getting later and later and later, and I'm coming on. Now I'm going on like the place is swimming, and I start to overhear people. You know, and I'm going off in this paranoid space. And I'm thinking, God, this place is full of mafia guys, and they're all trying to kill me. You know, I got that notion in my head. You know. This guy comes in. He looks exactly like a mafia guy. You know, he says, "Here, you want something to drink?" And I look at it, poison. You know, no thanks. You know, it's like everybody is armed to the teeth. They're all trying to kill me. Okay, so I'm waiting there to go on. Oh shit, this is it. This is my last night on Earth. You know, I'm convinced of this now. Yeah, still in this psychedelic roar. You know. And so we're going out on stage, you know, to go play, and I'm going out there and I'm thinking, oh God, you know, Jesus. What have I done to deserve this? You know, I'm going to go out there and play, and they're going to fucking kill me, you know. You know. So the only thing I could think of to do was I said, okay, I'm just going to play for my life. I'm going to play for my life. That's what I'm going to do, you know. And so I played for my life, and they let me live. Ever since then, you know, I mean, you know, ever since then I thought, that works, you know, for me, is to play for my life. You know, so, you know, you know, when I forget what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, I play for my life.
Okay.
etc.
I've read definitions of the deadheads in Time and Newsweek. You're Jerry Garcia. What's your definition of a deadhead?
Well, they're little tiny people about this big, bulbous heads and long feet.
I'm doing this as a two-shot. Is that a problem?
What do you mean a two-shot? It should be just the back of his head and basically me.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a two-shot. That's
Yeah,
what it is.
sure.
I'm just checking,
Okay.
because like I said, you know,
Okay,
should I do
you ready?
this?
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Here we go.
Hi.
There they go.
Yeah,
I have
the door.
I have two things, and then we're out of here. Okay. Okay. Two questions, and we'll get you out of here.
It's just the FBI.
Yeah, oh, that's okay, as long as it's not the IRS.
Trying to do something without knowing exactly what it is.
Discovery. It's surprising and it's fun, like coincidence. To stay interested. And then I try.
Believing that anything is possible. Da, da, da.
楽しむことだ。ジェリー・ガルシアとパルコより。
Interesting. Parco.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets Say she got my child, but it don't look like me. Sit out running, but I tell you one time, friend of the devil is a friend of mine. I get home for daylight, just might get some sleep tonight. First one say she got my child, but it don't look like me. Said I'll be running, but I take my time. Friend of the devil is a friend of mine. I get home for daylight, just might get some sleep tonight.
Yeah. In fact, keep it. I've got my own somewhere. Hi.
They have to change tape for you to put that on.
Oh, okay.
They'll be ready for you.
Let me know when they've changed it.
I have one question that I want to ask you, but I'll wait until this is done that I didn't get a chance to get to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're going to do video. I think that's one real big hole on the channel. You gotta have it.
Yeah, we will. We will.
It's a ways off, I know, because you haven't done the album yet, but I'm thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still have the production company? Yeah. The film?
Not really. But it can be reassembled at any moment. Wait a minute.
Better now? Okay.
Hello? Hey, is that Jerry Garcia? Hi.
Is that TV?
Hi. I'm Jerry Garcia.
Oh, let's start one more time.
Right.
Hi, please.
Hi. I'm Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead on MTV Music Television, the channel you've been waiting for.
That's great. You wanted to tape for safety? That was perfect.
Just once more for safety. Quiet, please.
Hi, I'm Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead on MTV Music Television, the channel you've been waiting for.
Terrific. We're going to take a two-shot from here. If you just keep talking for one more second, we're going to take a two-shot
Yeah.
live here.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask you about was, should I not talk? Or? Okay. Yes, how you got involved with the acid tests?
Friends, really, is really what that was about, because it was part of a social scene. See, the Grateful Dead sort of grew out of a social scene.
Totally ...
Totally. It was like totally.
Yeah, totally. Totally, I don't know, like communistic.
Great.
Do it.
Mark.
What if you could comment on essentially on Kesey, Cassidy, Wavy, I mean, and the kinds of roles they had, and mainly Cassidy, actually.
Well, Cassidy is one of the kind of people that you know, he's so he was such an overwhelming trip. Cassidy, I don't know. It's hard to even know what to say about Cassidy. He was so singular. I mean, it's just, well, for one thing, he was like the best, the ultimate sight gag person. You know what I mean? Physical comedy person. You know. Plus, he was also the world's best stand-up comic too. He had an incredible mind. That he would do this thing. He did it to everybody. Everybody has reported on this. He did it to everybody. You might not see him for months, you know, and he would pick up exactly where he left off the last time he saw you. You know, like in the middle of a sentence, he would pick up and you first of all you go, what the hell? And then you'd realize, oh yeah, this is that story he was telling me last time. You know, and it was like so mind-boggling. You couldn't believe that he was doing it. He used to do this thing that was this was something that killed me, and I saw him do it a lot of times. He'd take a dollar bill, you know, from anybody, you know, and take a dollar bill, and he'd put his hand on it like this, and he'd say the numbers, you know, the serial number, and you know I saw him get it right like 2 or 3 times. The serial numbers, you know what I mean? He just had this, he had this thing, you know, and his driving, Yeah, if you go for a drive with him, it was like the ultimate fear experience. You know that you knew you were going to die, and there was no question about it, and it was something so unbelievable. He loved big Detroit irons, you know, big cars, and he like driving in San Francisco. He would go down those hills, you know, like 50 miles and 60 miles an hour, and do corners, you know, blind corners going down those hills. You know, if you can imagine, like going down Franklin, you know, like top speed. You know what I mean? You know, disregarding anything, stop signs, signals, all the time talking to you, and maybe fumbling around with a little teeny roach, you know, trying to put it in a matchbook, you know, and also tuning the radio maybe, and also talking to whoever else is in the car, and never seeming to ever put his eyes on the road ever, you know. And this is like you'd be just dying, you know. You'd be dying, and it would effectively take you past that whole fear of death thing, you know. It's like a difficult experience because there's nothing else like it, apart from like almost like surviving an airplane crash, possibly, or something. I don't know what, and I mean, it was just so incredible, you know. It just his output, you know what I mean. And he felt he was the first person I met who he himself was the art. You know what I mean? He was an artist, and he was the art also. And he was doing it consciously as well. You know, so he did things. He worked with the world. I remember one time after a party, or after the Watts acid test, which was particularly strange, and we drove the bus over to the Watts Towers. For a minute or two, and we got out and looked at him, you know, and we were, you know, it's dawn. We went over to Wavy Gravy's house, which was down in like, off of Western, you know, way the hell off somewhere funny in Los Angeles. And they had a little house, and we had the bus there, and a bunch of us are sitting on the lawn, and we're all kind of crunched from being up all night, stoned on acid, you know. It's like the dawn. It's Sunday morning now. The dawn, and the bus is parked across the street. From our point of view, we're on the lawn, and it's Sunday morning early, and here's Neil, you know, and he's ripped his shirt off. He has no shirt on now, and now he's no shirt, no shoes, and these funky old chinos he always have. They're always like just about to fall off, you know. And he's, first of all, George Walker's driving the bus, so George is driving the bus, and Neil is like the guy directing him into the parking place, you know, a little to the left, a little to the right. He's doing it all with signals, and he directs him right into a stop sign, an arterial stop sign, and knocks it. It shears it off. Boom! The stop sign falls down. So then Neil gets up. So then the bus is parked, and Neil gets up, and he's got the stop sign, you know, and he's like kind of trying to make it stand up, you know. And so he's there with this stop sign, and down the street come like two really straight little old ladies, you know. They're on their way to church Sunday morning, you know. And here's Neil. He's like the cosmic village drunk, you know what I mean? He's like, and he's got the stop sign, you know. they're trying not to see him, you know. And he's doing this whole series of kind of like, "Good morning, ma'am," you know, kind of pantomime, you know, this extravagant thing all the time with. He would kind of like stand up the stop sign and then walk away from it, and it'd start to fall, and he'd grab it just as I'm about to hit, you know. And all this stuff happening. It was like amazingly great. It was just beautiful, perfect timing, you know, and it's just extraordinarily beautiful, you know. And the way his body moved, the way he looked, and everything like that was just absolutely. His face is so expressive. He would go through millions of expressions, just millions of them, and just his whole body language and everything. It was so communicative. It was just amazing. It was I was dying. I thought I was going to die. It was so hilarious. It was absolutely perfect. You know, it was like a little silent movie, a silent ballet. You know, in the morning. It lasted about maybe a minute and a half. You know, 2 minutes, but it was perfect. You know, it was like a perfect moment. It was just great. And I mean, Neil was that guy. I mean, he just could do that. You know, that's who he was. You know, he was that guy in the real world. You know, he was this something. He scared a lot of people. A lot of people thought he was crazy. You know, a lot of people were afraid of him, and most people I know didn't understand him at all. You know, but he was like a musician in a way. I mean, he liked musicians. He always liked to hang out with musicians. That's why he sort of picked up on us and me, and we hung out together a lot, and he liked the company of musicians.
When you were living in Haight, was he around during that?
Yeah, he was, off and on. He stayed up in our attic when we were in 710. He had a little camp up there, you know, with a mattress, and his old Cheetos, his old jeans, and stuff like that were up there. And he would come in and hang out for a week or so every month or so. Every couple of months, maybe.
In the moonlight, in the midnight, in the moonlight, midnight moonlight. Feel lonesome, you're down in San Antonio. Beg, steal, or borrow 2 nickels or a dime. Call me on the phone. I'll meet you at Alamo Mission. We can say our prayers. The Holy Ghost and the Virgin Mother will heal us as we kneel there. In the moonlight, in the midnight, in the moonlight, midnight moonlight, in the moonlight, in the midnight, in the moonlight, midnight moonlight. tomorrow, the things you might have done. No hope for tomorrow, the setting of the sun, and the ocean is howling. The things that might have been, that last good morning sunrise will be the brightest you've ever seen. In the moonlight, in the midnight, in the moonlight, midnight moonlight, in the moonlight, in the midnight, in the moonlight, midnight moonlight, in the moonlight, in the midnight, in the moonlight, midnight moonlight, in the moonlight, in the midnight, in the moonlight, midnight moonlight.
I was wondering, where's that flat head come from? You know, whose idea was that? And I got thinking, well, maybe the makeup guy decided he wanted to do something to make the creature distinctly not human. You know, like different in a visual way.
Thank you.
For
See you
me,
later.
that movie is the start of my fascination, first of all, with movies. You know, I mean, and I'm a filmmaker also. And the visual component is an important part of my life. I'm an art school person and so forth. I do art is the other thing I do besides music. I used to draw pictures of the Frankenstein monster over and over, you know, endlessly in different positions and different configurations. And I studied carefully the old Jack Pierce makeup, you know, what it looked like. And I mean, I was totally absorbed. I became totally absorbed. I think part of it had to do with the thing of being afraid the first time I saw it, the thing of it having that power of fear over me. I think there was some desire on my part to embrace that, you know, to make that, to not let that control me that way. That whole business evoked something. It's like touched something, you know what I mean? Something, I don't know what, something very strong. And it hit me in that archetypal thing. It hit me right in the Jungian center, you know, boom, you know, tong, you know. Comedy, and the thing of being funny is, it's a smart strategy, you know, to get by, you know, in life. If you're not powerful, if you're not huge, if you're not muscular, if intimidation is too much work for you, you know what I mean? It works good at disarming powerful adversaries. Costello is a remarkable comedian. His very, very broad physical style of comedy fits beautifully with the sense of this movie, you know what I mean? In other words, it's as big as the scary part. I see him as a power figure because he prevails, you know. He does in fact win, you know. And that's, you know, that's a lot of power for the little guy too, you know what I mean? Which is also another thing that whole movie kind of is, like it's the little guy. The little guy nobody believes him. When you're a kid, it's like being a kid. Costello's a kid, he's the kid. You know, he's the person, the youngest person in the family. You know what I mean? He's the one that nobody believes, and get out of here. You know, what are you talking about? I have a general fascination with the bizarre, you know, that comes directly from that movie. You know, that was my first sense of, there are things in this world that are really weird, you know. I don't think I knew that before I saw that movie, that there are things that are really weird and there are people who are concerned with them. You know, in some way that became important to me, and I guess I thought to myself on some level, I think I want to be concerned with things that are weird. I think that seems interesting to me because it seems like fun. Hi there. Hello. Frond. And that is in fact who I am.
It's only one thing better than one banjo.
What's that, David?
Two banjos.
Not hardly. Yeah, it's friendly fire. Take me back to the place where I first saw the light, to the sweet sunny south. Take me home, where the mockingbirds sing me to rest every night. Why was I tempted to roam? Take me back to the place where the orange trees grow, to my cot in the evergreen shade, where the flowers on the river's green margins did grow and spread their sweet scent through the plain. I think with regret of the dear home I left, of the dear hearts that sheltered me there, of wife and of dear ones of whom I'm bereft, for the old place again do I see. A path to our cottage they say has grown green, and the place is quite lonely around. I know that the smiles and the forms I have seen now lie in the dark mossy ground. Take me back, let me see what is left that I knew. Can it be that the old house is gone? Dear friends of my childhood indeed must be few, and I must face death all alone. But yet I'll return to the place of my birth. The long love sheltered me there, and gather my flowers that grow round the path will echo their footsteps no more. Take me back to the place where I was asleep, on moss the last buried close by, on the graves of my loved ones I long for to read, and among them to rest when I die. Take me back to the place where I first saw the light, to the sweet sunny south. Take me home, where the mockingbirds sing me to rest every night. Oh, why was I tempted to roam? Went out last night to take a little run, met a city and I rode down. Went right home, went to bed, poured a pour of smoke and sun to my head. Standing on the corner, reading the bill, along come a man from Thomasville. Says, young man, is your name Brown? Remember the night you blowed city down? Oh yes sir, my name's Lee. I murdered little city in the first degree and second degree. Got any papers, would you read them to me? to wear the ball and stripe. Went out last night to take a little walk. Met a little city and I blowed it down. Went right home, went to bed. 44 smokers under my head. Go down, Lord.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about Palo Alto.
Let's get on to the real stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So this is a history of Palo Alto, and it's actually growing into more of a history of Silicon Valley. And you know, one of the things.
What sort of history?
How's our sound? Do we want the mic where it is now?
Cultural history, or a?
We're looking at you know, just the development of the whole area, and one of the things that that we're really missing. This is a lovely thing to have pointed out.
Yeah.
is we're missing the cultural aspect of it, you know?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, this place, you know, there was a lot happening. I found some interesting connections. When I lived down there as a kid, I went to a little school called Menlo Oaks. Yeah, it was the first year that this school it had just been built as a junior high school. That means 7th and 8th grade down in the peninsula. On the good side of the freeway. You know, the bad side of the freeway was East Palo Alto. Now, I used to hang out there, and I went to school there too. Everybody did, and you know, it was just, you know, that's where all the black people live. You know, so then they put this new junior high school, and it you know, we were in the first class or so, the first two classes of it, and it you know, it had the thing about it being so close to Stanford, the education, the School of Education and stuff like that, you know, the people that were studying education or one thing or another, were constantly using our little school as a place where you experiment with programs of one sort or another. You know, so I was involved in this thing. They had this thing when I was going there called the Fast Learner Program, where the brightest kids, first they tested everybody, and the brightest kids were all like 3 times a week, went to college level classes in any of, you know, about maybe half a dozen classes, or maybe 8 or 9 classes that you could choose whatever you wanted. So I used to take an art class and a science class, and basically just got to do what I wanted. And you'd study just that subject all day long. You didn't do any other stuff. It was great fun. I mean, it was like, so, you know, being there. But anyway, when I was down there, I had this teacher, a tremendously, he got in trouble all the time, this guy did. First of all, I was with all the wiseacres. You know, I was with all the smart kids from this other school that I'd been in, my little school, you know. And they put all the bright kids together, but it was dangerous, you know, because we were little smart asses along with it. So we had this kind of unsteady Second World War vet as our male teacher over in East Palo Alto for our first year of junior high school, 7th grade. A guy named Mr. Green, perfectly nice guy, but, you know, just a little, you know, a little bit of battle fatigue in there, you know, whatever the euphemism they had for it in there, post-traumatic shock syndrome. Anyway, he's a little unsteady, and we kind of did this thing of baiting him, you know, and doing all kinds of pulling weird tricks on him and doing all this stuff, and he finally cracked right up and he quit, and he beat up some kid, and he left us like, last time I remember seeing him was, he was checking at the counter in the Safeway, you know. I like him. Hi, Mr. Green. By this time, he's like, his mouth is moving, but nothing's coming out. You know, it's like. Anyway, so as a replacement now for this class, the replacement we got next was an extraordinarily neurotic woman from somewhere, God knows where, who was like. One of those women who overdresses for, you know, junior high school, you know, like big boobs, you know, like, right. But one of those like tied down, you know, somebody tied down the metal the day she's like, you know, and she's like furious, you know, she's operating just under furious, you know, she's got fury, free-floating fury for anything. And she also snapped, you know, she finally went dying, you know, and that was it for her. So finally we got this other guy, this last guy, you know, and we're thinking, now, okay, this guy's going to be easy. We'll just bomb this fucker right out of the water, you know, it's Mr. Johnson. But Mr. Johnson turned out to be great. He turned out to be really amazing, and he talked to the class like we were adults. This is the 7th grade, you know. He talked to us like adults. So with Mr. Johnson, I learned lots and lots about every kind of thing. I mean, all kinds of things. By the time that grade it was over, I was starting to get seriously. I was starting to learn things, you know. And he was incredible. He'd come to school. He had an MGTC, one of those old beautiful MGs, the kind with the big square hoods, not the little pointy coffin shaped ones, but the ones with the big long straight square hood, you know. that nasty growl, you know. And he also had a Vincent Black Shadow, the fastest accelerating motorcycle at the time. You know, it's like a real monster motorcycle. I mean, a teacher on a motorcycle. Who ever heard of such a thing? And he'd come out to school in his motorcycle, his black leather jacket. You know, this is like 1954 or something. You know, I mean, you know, he was really, really outrageous. And he and every once in a while, his wife would come, and she was like beautiful. She was a real peach. You know, she looked real great. And Mr. Johnson recognized that I had a certain amount of facility with drawing. I could draw pretty well, and so he had me, you know, wisely. But he also knew that I was a confusion artist. You know, like, you know, if you can sink it, you know. And but he got me involved in doing all these things that you know, murals and, you know, supervising all kinds of stuff and doing the class plays and all that stuff. And you know, so I ended up being that guy. You know, and he fed it back to me. And his wife, who was an artist also herself, she was real great. They were real helpful. This guy, Mr. Johnson, Dwight Johnson was his name. It turns out at that time, Kesey was like, you know, like a freshman at Stanford, and I didn't know this until later, of course. But Kesey was telling me about how he used to hang out at Dwight Johnson's house, and Dwight Johnson's the guy that turned Kesey onto pot. Now that's what I heard. I mean, you know, in terms of like what kind of a place was Palo Alto? I mean, it was deeply subversive, you know. I mean, but in a visionary kind of far out way, you know what I mean? I mean, because I was ready for anything. After I met Dwight Johnson, I was ready for anything, you know. I mean, I was truly ready for anything. And my further experiences, then I moved back up to the city. My experiences from then on were just more reinforced, you know. But I got to be quite a, you know, I guess a bohemian, you know. Because this is before they started using the word beatnik or any of that stuff, you know, Beat Generation or any of that was like out and around.
So it was a happening place. I mean, it was a place. I mean, you know, Kesey was at Stanford taking acid for crying out loud. And
well, that was all later. I mean, this much later. I mean, I'm talking about the part I was talking about before was back when I was a kid. I mean, this is like in the 50s, you know, and but. It was a short hop from there to when I went back there to about 1960, 59 or 60 when I went back after I'd been in the Army. And, you know, it was, I still went to the same, I still found it friendly. And I went to East Palo Alto. My brother had been a fan of rhythm and blues, and I'd been listening to it, you know, hell, all my life. I mean, at least as far as I can remember. You know, I mean, this is back in the days when guys like John Lee Hooker had hits, you know, in the rhythm and blues world. I mean, these funky country blues guys, you know, and the Bay Area had lots of blues cats, old timers, you know. You know, all these guys. There were a lot of them. And they're around, and it was like a sort of distinctive style in the Bay Area. And then there was all that. There was all those the chess records. You know, that the Chicago blues, Muddy Waters, and all those guys are so wonderful. I mean, that music I grew up on. You know, I didn't occur to me that. I mean, that was the music that I heard.
Sure.
That, and my grandmother was a nut for the Grand Ole Opry. She played the Grand Ole Opry every Saturday night. So I got that sound in my ears, the fiddles, you know. And, you know, sometime around here was the folk music thing was happening, the Kingston Trio and all that stuff. And so the thing of having an acoustic guitar and, you know, and being able to pick a little bit was like, you know, I got fascinated by that. I heard this guy play fingerstyle guitar, finger picking, you know. Mm-hmm. And I said, geez, I got to do that. That sounds great. You know, I just got to learn how to do that, you know. And things got to me that way. I would hear something and I would just love it, you know. And I feel like I was getting closer and closer to the kind of the golden soul of what I wanted to do, you know, the thing about music, you know. And music got my attention and art stopped having. You know, I mean, the arts, I didn't even think, you know, I just want to do this. And so I'd spend all day picking at the guitar, you know, listening to records and slowing them down and doing that. You know, that's what I wanted to do. We were lucky enough to be able to get weird at a time when, as far as psychedelics were concerned, they were still legal, for one thing, and the other thing was that nobody knew what the fuck they were.
Yeah.
You know, so if your behavior defies description, you know what I mean? What's the guy doing? Well, I don't know. He's sort of standing up, so he's over upside down by the lamppost over there. He's got one leg wrapped around the telephone pole, and he's pumping his arms out, and he's screaming something about Merry Christmas. I don't know what the hell it is, you know. It's like, you know, if your behavior is so weird, and you know, but you're not harming anybody or scaring anybody. I mean, and the people realize that this guy's harmless, you know. It really, it's okay. You can be as weird as you want. It's like in England, they have this thing where as long as you don't bother anybody, you can be as weird as you want, and they kind of treasure their mad people. You know, they kind of like, if you're crazy, no problem. You know,
less uptight, more fun time, more just a period that.
Yeah, well, for us, that we had as much time to be young and carefree and having a wonderful time. Sort of life. We had as much of it as anybody could possibly want. I mean, and it was really great. It really was. And it was also enough time to develop the skills that you needed. Like for me, for being able to spend enough time working on my playing, so that it wasn't developed in a frenzy. It was developed out of love, my own personal love for it. You know, and. You know,
that's really well put.
Well, I don't know any other way to say it, really, because I did meet people who learned under other ways, you know, other envelopes, and it's not that they could do. I mean, what they did technically was any better or anything, but sometimes it had a darker purpose to it, sort of. I mean, it was good and everything; it was well executed, but sometimes it lacked the thing of heart, you know. How music should always have it. Even mechanistic music. The nature of what was happening was so delicate, so bizarre, and it had a kind of, you know, a kind of unfocused, diffuse. I mean, it's the sort of thing that it's difficult to talk about even now, because there was the point about it was that it didn't have a center. It wasn't directed by outside forces or by the normal history as we normally perceive it. It was not about those things. You know, that wasn't what it was, and that wasn't what it was about. And it was about possibilities, I think, and they were in the air. They were just in the air, and everybody was also waiting with the sense of something is about to happen. Was so imminent. You know what I mean? It was just like everybody knew it. You know, everybody was waiting for this thing to happen. Something was going to happen, and it was just so obvious. And everybody did what they could to make it happen. You know, people would try weird shit. You know what I mean? Everybody got turned on to pot during this period and loved it. Everybody tried other forms of other kinds of drugs, crystal and so forth, and didn't like it so well, or liked it a lot, but it made them crazy. Did lots of, you know, and really, what it was everybody was waiting for psychedelics. Everybody was waiting for LSD because of what we'd heard about it, what everybody had heard about it, and it seemed like, you know, that thing of the sense of losing faith in this reality. Like, this reality is not, this is not that great. You know, this is not that good. This can't be all there is. There's just not enough to it. There's not enough to it. It's not that interesting. It isn't enough fun. It doesn't require enough of me. It's not a challenge, you know. There's got to be more. When LSD hit the streets finally, that was like it. Here, you were looking for more? Here it is. This is more. This is more than you can imagine. I mean, and for me, that's what that was. I mean, it's not. I realize that drugs are not politically correct right at this moment, but you know, psychedelics. For the people that were waiting for them, they were exactly the thing They were exactly the thing, you know. I mean, because they have that way of being individual. They're not people don't experience exactly the same effects. They experience themselves, and sometimes it turns out to be utterly delightful. Sometimes it turns out to be a total bummer. But either way, you've got more of it to work with when you've taken psychedelics and seen the bigger picture, you know. So sometimes it meant that I got to get to work or I'm going to be this way all my life, you know. Sometimes that's what it meant. Sometimes it meant no more psychedelics. They're too weird for me, but I think I'd better go join a monastery somewhere, because the only way to work this out is the long, slow way, you know, unpanicked, unhurried. Some people, it was like psychedelics. Yes, okay, where's the next terminal? You know, I'm ready, you know, I'm ready to move to the next square, you know. And, you know, it hit people where they needed to be hit, and it was the thing that everybody was waiting for. You know, and it was, and everything opened up right in front of it, boom, like that. It was truly amazing. And that hole lasted for about a year and a half, maybe. There was like this magic kind of hole. When LSD was still legal, it hadn't been made illegal yet, and the idea of being high was so new that nobody recognized it, and you were free to freak out completely, get as high as you wanted to, out in the open, and they couldn't take you to jail for it. And that was really a wonderful thing to have experienced. You know, that was like, you know, I mean, after that, there's not really, I mean, for me, in my life, there's no turning back. There was no back. You know, not just a matter of turning back, but the idea of backness was gone. And, like, all directions were forward from there. You know what I mean? And as far as, like, information and material, you know, like, it's like having so much material. I mean, and it stays with you too. Like the experiences that I experienced back in those days, the psychedelic days, they were more real than anything I ever experienced on this level. You know, they were way more real. You know, they were so much more detailed and lifelike and beautiful and horrible and everything else, and all the way, you know, down to the teeniest, weeniest, smallest iota of discriminate material. Every bit of it was, you know, it was incredible. I don't know, you know, that's just one of the reasons I sort of disqualify myself from this discussion on a serious level, is because there simply is conventional wisdom won't accept this subjective of a overview. You know, for me, that's the point. That's what it was. That's what it was about. Was that it was subjective, and you know, I'm so glad that it happened in my lifetime, and that I got to experience it at its purest. You know, I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world, really. No kidding. And hey, that's it. You know. Neil Cassidy was always around in the world that I was in. He was like peripheral to it somewhere or another. When I was at the Art Institute, he was somewhere around North Beach there. You know, I knew people who knew him, and I knew people who knew him all over the way. And finally, I got pretty close to him myself. I got to be good friends with him, and he was one of those guys that truly was a very special person. You know, and one of those things. I mean, you know, for me, my life is. I mean, psychedelics and Neil Cassidy are almost equal in terms of influence on me. I mean, because Neil, I don't even know how to say it. I don't even know how to say it. He was his own art. You know, it's like he wasn't a musician. He was a Neil Cassidy. You know what I mean? He was like a set of one. You know, and he was it. You know, he was the whole thing, top, bottom, and beginning, everything, and people knew it, you know, and people would be drawn to it and destroyed. or else they would be repelled from it, you know. And maybe people reacted every conceivable way. I thought he was hilarious. I thought he was just the greatest thing in the world, you know. I really loved him, and I had no fear of him. I never worried about whether I was going to lose my life riding in a car with him. I knew I was going to lose my life. I didn't worry about whether I was going to. I knew I was going to. But learning how to give everything up like that is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful tool. And I don't know how else I could have learned it. Nothing else would have made me learn it, you know. Just like racing over San Francisco, you know, like the San Francisco, say the Pacific Heights, you know, at like 65 miles an hour, you know, making those hills and those corners and going through the signals and in the middle of traffic, just, you know, I'm doing things where, you know, we can't possibly make this corner, don't even try it. And Neil is like, he doesn't even look like he's paying attention to anything, to the road or anybody or anything, and he's like, and he just whips it, and you look out the window and you realize you're on the sidewalk, you know, you're like a half an inch away from a telephone pole over here and things. I mean, it's just, you know, it's just insane, totally insane, man. You're totally safe. You know, nothing happened. You know, you can't believe that you were able to. He did it all the time. That was the thing that he was truly great at. There was other things that he was merely very, very good at, you know. But that was the thing he was truly great at. He was really something. He was enough to boggle about, you know, quite a few people. I mean, Neil was very taken with. Kesey was very taken with him, and obviously Jack Kerouac was, you know, and he was an unbelievable human being. You know, the energy that he had, and the vocabulary that he had of gestures and expressions, and he was just, oh boy, he was funny. And he also had a tremendous rap too. He could, I mean, I don't know what to say about Neil. You know, some people just thought he was crazy. You know, he's crazy. Get him out of here. I don't want him here. You know, a lot of women, he frightened them. He was too out of control. And a lot of men felt that they had to somehow get involved in contests with him, you know, and of some kind, and that didn't work out good. They'd always, I don't know what, they'd always try something, and it didn't work out. The thing about Neil was people wanted to compete with him without having any sense of what competing with him might mean. You know what I mean? Like, what is it, competing with him? I don't know. Staying up all night? I don't know what is competing with him. You know, it was one of those things that wasn't obvious. Anyway, if you want any more than that, you're going to have to talk to somebody else.